the most official, impressive natural medicine that grows in the wild, easy access that you could ever get, ideal for liver and kidney as well as gallbladder disorders. Who could use a little bit of undisordered gallbladder and liver? Is there any exception? I mean, what we're exposed to today with pesticides, herbicides, toxins, and more, with every kind of a toxic chemical known to the human race, dandelion, clean you out and make you well. That's the leaf. Now, this is end of season leaf, so it's going to be bitter, but it's still edible. And then if you get this in the spring, that's when it's ideal, when it's freshly shooting out. But the root you're trying to allude to is a fantastic coffee substitute, and one of the teas that is made by North American Herb & Spice has dandelion root in it, roasted. But it's there, and it's and when the leaves shrivel up and become reddened and wilted, the root is ready to be harvested. Now here's the caveat, right? You can't do it everywhere. Somebody just sprayed, you saw that little sign, don't step on this, or you might die of leukemia or drop dead of a stroke or something. They just sprayed, right? So if you're going to pick this, you'd want to make sure that nobody's spraying herbicide or toxins. But that doesn't mean that this is less healthy than what you would buy in a grocery store, because these are wild plants. So if you did find some of these plants, you knew what you had, wash it really good, and you can eat it. But I show this because for every disease, there is a cure. There are no exceptions. You name the disease, I'll name you some cures, some natural remedies that are effective. And if you have a certain condition, and we have a few of you in the audience today, they may have some challenges, we will deal with that and prescribe and recommend what you need. But the subject of the lecture, in general, covers most of the problems that we're facing, which are high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, as well as the diabetes epidemic. So let's start with that. Anybody in the audience suffer from high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, or any other condition like that? We have 3 heart disease, high blood pressure cases. High blood pressure. Anybody with diabetes? Really?
It runs in my family, so
Yeah?
probably.
Okay.
Same.
What's that?
Runs in the family.
It does. Okay. So, with the diabetes and the heart disease, they're tied, conjoined together, and they're curable. But the first thing you have to do is look at the diet. How many of you with diabetes or heart disease consider your diet, where you really are watching it, you're taking a look at what you're eating, you're looking at the labels, you're conscious of everything that you put in your body? High blood pressure, diabetes. Anybody? No. So the first cure, the herbs are great when you're dealing with these degenerative diseases, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and more, is to deal with what you're eating. So that's one of the reasons we came here today, was to give you an assessment of how what you could be consuming could cause you to be sick. So that's an easy cure to take advantage of. So, first question. How many of you know about refined sugar and its danger to the human body? Corn syrup, refined sugar, anything? Okay. How many of you are watching the labels to see how much sugar you're consuming? Anybody looking? You're looking. Most of the people with the conditions? All right, so let's just give it a perspective. The average consumption of American public of refined sugar is 150 pounds per person per year. So let's take 15 10-pound bags of cane sugar and plop them on the table and do a visual. Would you even, in your right mind, take a teaspoon in one of those bags and eat that? Would you eat one 10-pound bag in a year? Not knowingly. And you certainly would not lusciously or enjoyably consume 15 10-pound bags. Now let's make it perspective a little more realistic. That's the average consumption, 15 10-pound bags, or 150 pounds, 140 pounds. But I don't eat any. Who else doesn't eat any? Very little. You don't eat any. You don't eat any. So that means that we're the average, right? somebody out there is eating 300 pounds or 450 pounds of refined sugar. It's a total catastrophe. So the very first thing you do, besides go into the bush and hunt the herbs or take your supplements, is you got to deal with the diet. You've got hypertension, you've got diabetes, you have lupus, you have skin disorders, you have heart disease at large, you have a weak heart, you have a thyroid disorder, you have prostate condition, cancer, and you come to me and you say, doctor, what do I do? What do I take? I got to get rid of the sugar. We've got to get rid of the corn syrup. We've got to get rid of the GMOs. We've got to get rid of the processed foods. You got to do it immediately. Easy enough. But you have to identify it. You have to realize it to do it. Now, what does that mean? It means that the diet has to be food. It means that you shop just the outer aisles for the food, and you don't buy anything in the inner aisles with very few exceptions. It's very simple. You buy a bag of potatoes, a bag of sweet potatoes, some healthy organic ground meat, or some farm-raised chicken. You buy some watermelon, cantaloupe, some grapefruits, some berries, and you eat that. You buy some nuts and seeds if you want a little variety. And then you start to feel better. You start to reverse the disease process. Your blood pressure goes down, your cardiac sequelae improve, and your potential for cancer is reduced, and then the various inflammatory diseases like arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia, they all improve. And you didn't take a single pill. It's a big, big deal. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, then you start to look at, once you've changed the diet, you've ditched the processed foods, you've ditched the refined sugar, the corn syrup, you've figured out what the GMOs are, which I'll give them to you. But the next step is to take proper nutritional supplementation to reverse the disease process. Some concentrates, what you're missing. Maybe you're deficient in protein, deficient in B complex, deficient in vitamin C. Perhaps, as we heard earlier, you have too many toxins, so you need something to flush the poison out of your body, so you deal with it that way. How many of you, now so we promised to give you the GMOs, can recite to me what the genetically engineered food is that you need to avoid to make this protocol work for you? Does anybody know? Because they're outright poisons. Anybody know what they are? Corn, soy, cottonseed. It's not too difficult. Beet sugar, canola. You really have to rigidly avoid those. But that's not so difficult with my diet, because the diet includes all the outer aisle, whole food type of components, and the GMOs are in the processed foods. Now somebody might say, well, I like a little snack, I like a little something variety. Well, then get non-GMO if you're going to get foods of that source. But as a rule, you're better off regardless without soy. Because you know that the Oriental people, the only soy that we had in the 60s and 50s in this country was soy sauce. So traditionally, they ferment the soy. It has not been a part of their diet to eat constantly these soy protein textured foods. So it's just a good idea to eliminate the soy. How many of you drink soy milk? Think it's a good thing? It's just not a good thing. You know, either get organic milk or almond milk. Those are much superior. So the diet's not too difficult to do to get us started. The nutritional supplements are to be targeted for each disease. So we've got a nice list for you to take home with you and look at. But every condition, there are certain supplements that are ideal for you to take. So let's begin with heart disease. With heart disease, the biggest thing that we've discovered is that extract of grape is very curative. Also, it's been discovered that the consumption of chaga helps reverse heart disease. Another very important component is, as was mentioned earlier, that people have a tendency for fungal overload, fungal infection, toxicity. And if you have fungus in your body, it really aggravates the heart disease condition. You have to clear out the fungus. In fact, when you have heart disease or hypertension, it's very common to have yeast overload. Now, how many of you, by the way, who have the hypertension know very well that you've been eating a lot of sugar? You have been? Okay, so if we took, and you too, you have heart disease, you do? When did you get your diagnosis? Yeah. Okay. So if we were to take the sugar away, your hypertension would improve, but you also have to kill out the fungus to get rid of it. So if we took a close look at you, we might see that you have coated tongue, yellow furry tongue, and other symptoms of fungus. Many of you could feel bloated after you eat and have discomfort in your abdomen. That's fungal also. So cleaning out the fungus is important. It's especially important with arthritis, with lupus, with psoriasis, eczema, and with cancer. So we got a kind of a start in that direction of using the oil of oregano as an antifungal agent. Now, the other area is diabetes. Diabetes is caused by sugar. That's why it's called sugar diabetes. So I don't do you a favor by those of you who are diabetic or pre-diabetic by just giving you a bunch of supplements. You've got to do something radical with your diets. So you were the one with the diabetes that has a diagnosis? So can you help us out a little bit and tell us, well, you might even win a prize for this. Can you bravely tell us what you eat?
Since I was little, I've always had a sweet tooth. Anything sweet. I'm not a real salty eater, but anything sweet I've always loved. From candy to cookies, cake, just sugar.
Okay. Yeah. So it's called that for a reason. The cure is so simple for you. You have to just go the complete opposite. It's going to be, it might shock you, but you got to do high fat. Yeah. You do a high fat, high protein diet, you ditch the carbohydrate, and you'll start to get better within like a week. Yeah, and you'll notice it in your blood sugars. Are you on medication?
Yes.
Okay, because we're going to get into that next. So I must stress, as you heard earlier, you should do organic. We're going to bring our nutritionist up a little later, and she's going to give us more insight in that. But she means it, and that means not necessarily buying organic food if you can't do that in every case, but it means raising it, it means farmers markets. You've got to change it up. How many of you have the ability to make a garden? Okay, well, you've got to do the necessary thing. You see, if you don't, the consequences are extreme. With diabetes, it could be diabetic ulcers, diabetic crisis, hospitalization, you know the gig, kidney disease, kidney failure, amputation in the extreme. Not good. With heart disease, it can be a sudden cardiac event, and then you're hospitalized, and you might be given stents or even bypass surgery, which is disastrous. You don't want it. And with hypertension, you can have hypertensive crisis, which could lead to a stroke. You don't want it. But the bigger consequence we didn't discuss, and that's the drug therapy. That's far more dangerous than even the acute sequelae. The number one cause of fatality in this country may well be pushed past heart disease. It could very well be drug therapy. There are 250,000 people who die in the United States alone from drug-resistant infections just in hospitals. So let's count the number. That's 250,000 people that get MRSA or Candida sepsis or some other nasty pathogen because they were taking so many IV antibiotics, so many antibiotics, and the infection, or they pick up the infection in the hospital that's in the air ducts or on the surfaces. Then they check out in the hospital. Then, according to JAMA, about 180,000 people die every year from when they're given the prescription correctly in the hospital by the doctor, and it kills them. So add it up. Add it up. Then you talk about the people that are given a drug a sample drug at a doctor's office or an outpatient clinic, they have a reaction that does not include the people who get fatality from aspirin, which is over the counter, which is about 10,000 people a year. Before you know it, you got 500,000 deaths from drugs. And some of you are on drug therapy. So one of the things we wanted to do with the people who invited, the young men who invited us here, was to help give you some tools to get off the medication. And the fact is, and it's truly unfathomable, that you could do it just with the diet alone. Radical change in the diet. So, for the sake of our quaint group, let's go through it. What drugs are you taking?
High blood pressure pills, and then I'm also taking, I don't know the name of it, it's something for, oh my God, what is it? I can't think what it is.
No wonder you can't. Blood pressure pills, not you have enough blood to your brain. So from the neck up, there's not much happening then.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So that's fine. You're on a couple of medications.
Yes. Pain pill,
Oh, pain pill too.
hydrocodone.
Oh my God, not on a regular basis.
No,
Okay, all right.
every now and then.
Okay, everyone. What's that? Arthritic pain or neck pain or?
Because I have a torn rotator
Oh,
cuff.
torn rotator cuff. Okay. All right. So we've got at least a 3D here. 3 different drugs. Yeah. What do you got going on? Come on.
I think it's called Famotine or for acid reflux.
Oh, acid reflux. Okay.
I'm taking a heart pill. I'm taking 2 high blood pressure pills, aspirin.
Well, you're pretty functional from the neck up, considering what all you're putting in here.
Yeah.
So aspirin, high blood pressure pills, anti-acid pill. Oh, cardiazem type drug. Okay. For what was your diagnosis with the heart?
Congestive heart failure.
Congestive heart failure. Did you ever go into congestive heart failure and end up in a hospital, or did you have fluid that accumulated somewhere that legitimizes the diagnosis?
Fluid and my heart would beat really, really fast.
The heart would beat really, really fast. Where did the fluid accumulate? That doesn't make any
Doesn't
sense
make
to
sense.
me in the slightest degree. Impossible diagnosis.
Yeah, I've seen, a couple of cardiologists.
That doesn't help us much that you saw a couple of cardiologists, because they're in the business of being cardiologizing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to get to it. What else do we have for pharmaceutical drugs? Now, I'm not trying to fight a war, right? I'm just trying to help you out so that you can avoid catastrophes. Yes.
Metformin, Lantus, aspirin.
Aspirin too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So let's go through it. Your problem is you have a low pituitary function, and you have a weakness in your glands, and weakness of your ovaries. And so that's the problem with the heart, not congestive heart failure. And you have fungus overload too. So that has to be cleaned out. Plus you probably have a number of deficiencies. So your problem is, again, the same thing. Your thyroid's kaput, your ovaries are kaput, your pituitary function is kind of fizzling out, and you've got enough fungus to bake bread right here in the room. There's a fungus among us. Now, that's right. If I had some kind of a thing to kill the fungus, I'd spray it on her now. And you're also about ready to explode with the fungus. You're deficient in B vitamins, and the aspirin and all that probably is unnecessary, because you get off the sugar and the blood circulation improves. But it's a work in progress. And are you deficient in aspirin? Right? Are you deficient in metformin? Are you deficient in cardiazem? We have deficiencies in nutrients. And plus, for every drug, we can take an herb and take its place. Honest to God. I don't care what it is. Heart disease, hypertension, diabetes are very easy to reverse with herbal medicine. No brainer. Even cancer, if you know the right thing to give, you take a good diagnosis, you know what's going on, you can pound it out. Especially if you get them before they get the chemicals and the radiation. It's a racket, ladies and gentlemen. I'm speaking to you as a physician now, not as an activist. It's an extremely oppressive racket to only offer pharmaceutical drugs, chemotherapy, and radiation. For 20,000 years, or maybe some people say 4,000 years, I don't care how many years, for the history of the human race, the human race has always relied on the blessings in the nature to cure disease. The drugs were made from herbs. And they're more effective than the pharmaceutical drugs with essentially no side effects. So as promised, we're going to help you out, get rid of these conditions. Now, who knows what my diet is? We got 2 yes people on the phone. The diet is the consumption of common food that is in the outer aisles of the supermarket or the ethnic market or whatever. It's going to be, I'm not going to restrict you. It's going to be potatoes, sweet potatoes, onions, garlic, greens, fruit, every kind of vegetable, and meat, poultry, eggs, milk products, cheese, nuts, and seeds. Is that complicated?
Sound good to me?
Yeah?
No fish?
Yeah, oh, I forgot about the fish. Fukushima's got me, going here. All the radiation is in the Pacific, but fish, with some exceptions. Tuna. Tuna is now showing up radioactive. Yeah. Yeah. How many of you are eating tuna on a regular basis, by the way, just out of
We're
curiosity?
not regular, I had a sandwich at home I was looking forward to.
Okay. Yeah, those of you who are eating tuna on a regular basis, if you're having numbness in the bottom of your feet or numbness in your hands or fatigue or neuropathy, that's another issue. It's high in mercury. But okay, so salmon, Atlantic fish, tilapia, I maybe not be the fish expert, but yeah, fish. Now, so then we're doing that diet, we're starting to improve, and one of the side effects of the diet is weight loss. So beware of that. Now, if you're skinny already, you're not going to lose too much. So don't be afraid of it. Yeah. All right. One exception might be if you're having the diabetes right now and the fungus, you might not want to do the natural sugars like honey. But eventually, you may want to be able to add some raw honey as your sweetener. Yacon syrup is another one. Stevia is another. So there's ways to get around the habitual desire for sweet. But usually, when people have fungal overload, it's this diet that's going to be best. And even sometimes it's better not to eat the corn, not to eat the apples and the pears. If you're in your situation, certainly diabetes, to cut back on the excessively sweet fruit as well. And how's that?
I said, oh wow, that's about the only food I like.
I suppose so, because you're feeding your fungus.
Yeah.
But the sour fruits are better in that case. So you're talking about grapefruit, strawberries, papaya, lemons, limes, and also, by the way, cantaloupe, honeydew, and watermelon are very low in sugar despite how sweet they are. So they're fine on that diet. So the diet is really very simple, and any of you and all of you will do it, and you will see a radical improvement in your health. Now, I'm a big fan, though, of speeding up the process because, for example, it's taken many of you a few years, like, 5 or 6 years, right? Most of you are in the 20s and 30s here in the room, to get in this condition. So you want to do something to, crank the thing up. So you want to do what I did was you want to get into the wild oregano therapy, clean your system out. It's the #1 cleanser and purge that you could ever use. And the reason is it purges the pathogens that we have, the fungus overload that we're seeing in the room. So oil of oregano, Oregamax, juice of oregano is the protocol to take if you can, or at least the oil of oregano, clean out the fungus, and then you will be well. Now, yeah,
Is the reversal for type 1 diabetes and type 2 the same diet?
oh, okay, type 1 diabetes is much more extreme. If you're going to deal with type 1, you have to cut back on the starch too, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, because any kind of carbohydrate load is going to force the insulin reaction, and then they're going to have to take more insulin, or the blood sugar reaction, they're going to have to take more insulin. So if you wanted to try to reverse type 1, which is difficult to do with diet alone, then it would have to be super high protein, high fat, with some supplementation. And by the way, when I told you about eating fat, you know what I'm saying?
Healthy.
Not just nuts,
Avocado.
avocado, but not just that, the drippings of meat. I want you to soak all those drippings back into the food and eat the grease too.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's right. So when you roast the turkey, huh? Didn't you
I've done
get,
this before.
wasn't that done back in the 1950s and 60s?
They were.
Okay, so you roast that turkey, and it's, you know, it's got to be organic or a healthy chicken or something. You don't, who's taking the skin off? You keep the skin on, and you eat the fat. You know, and that creates a satiety, a fullness, and it's anti-glycemic. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to eat tubs of lard and margarine, right? Yeah.
Even when you baste in the chicken, because if I roast the chicken or turkey, I baste it with the juice, the fat that's falling off of there, and I even insert it in there.
See, she knows what to do with the chicken. She's a chicken lady. But, and then some of us used to take the butter and add that too.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Guilty.
yeah, but that doesn't mean we want to eat the other kinds, margarine and all that, we know that, right? So, but here's another caveat, a fun one. What about pork? Should we be eating, now that with this Dr. Ingram diet, should we pound the pork? You're a big one on that. Blowing up like a balloon with that pork.
No, she doesn't eat it.
Right, I stopped.
I don't eat it either.
That pig is a bad number. It's loaded with parasites. It's very difficult to digest. It rips up the gut, and it spreads all kinds of worms into the body. So it's not the same as a cow. The cow and the goat and the lamb and the sheep, they're eating grass. You can't feed them animal food. They're not going to eat a dead rat or a mouse. They're not going to root around and dig up grubs, right? So you got to have herbivore. When I talk about meat, it's got to be pretty much herbivore. Poultry is an exception. So now we can take y'all to the next step. We've got the diet. We're going to clean out the fungus because you know all of you have that sugar and carb consumption, so you're going to be loaded with fungus. And you do it for 90 days to 6 months. And by the way, we were reading some nice quotes there from the Old Testament, New Testament, whatever. I'm not expert there. I'm expert in herbs. But up there, it said something about, it didn't say, we didn't get it there. There's a little phrase that says you should purge yourself. You should purge everything out of your body. And it's in the Old Testament. Does anybody know what the purge is? It's oregano. Yeah, oil of oregano is the extreme condensation or extraction from that, but the purge is not hyssop. It's actually hyssop, which means wild oregano in Greek. So it is the #1 plant for wiping out the toxins, the poisons, and the poisonous germs that are infecting your body or damaging you. And when you start hitting the oregano, how many are ready for a total revolution in their health? Yeah?
Here, here.
Okay. Everybody in the room, you're going to have it with the oregano. Now, that's the basic. We want to go more extreme, though, with our friends in the front here with the diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. We want to go to the extreme. Yeah. So let's start with hypertension, which is best represented in the audience. Black seed oil, ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever heard of black seed oil? Habbat al-baraka in Arabic. The blessing in the old scriptures and so on. Black seed oil was used by the pharaohs, the women, on their face to make them so beautiful and to prevent any sun damage or radiation. But not too many ancient books talked about black seed oil. We now know when you take the black seed and extract the oil, it's a decided cure for hypertension. In every case. Tell us about your father-in-law.
Yes.
Can you tell the audience about it?
Absolutely. He was hospitalized and told that he was going to have to have heart surgery. Took the black seed oil and was coming back for a follow-up. And the doctor said, "I don't know what you've done, but it's completely reversed. Didn't have to have the surgery."
He had hypertension too, didn't he?
Sure did.
Knocked it straight down.
Diabetes.
Blessing.
Good for him.
God said it. Now, black seed oil, and then I did a study on another thing. Remember we mentioned the red grape, or the grape? So I took the Persian version of this. The Persian people take the grapes from the natural grapes, not those, these are wild grapes. They take the ones that they grow in the mountains, and they lay them before they turn. You see, if I told you for hypertension to go out and buy some commercial grapes, would it work? They've been changed. They've been corrupted. There's no seed in there. They've been hybridized. You're right. They're not going to work. Maybe if you skinned them and you just ate the skins, you might see something. But if you got the wild grape, you would see an antihypertensive. And Mr. Cody, who was it? You have them growing, right?
Yep.
Serve some up during October for us.
Okay.
So the wild grape's effective, but also in Persia, they take the grapes before they turn sugar, and they sun dry them, and then they turn it into a sour powder. So I found the Persians doing this, and so I said to the Iranians, "What do you use it for?" They said, "We use for high cholesterol and hypertension." So I did a study on 6 people with hypertension and hypercholesterolemia, and I gave them something called red sour grape, or Resvital is the trade name, and in every case, the blood pressure and the blood cholesterol came to normal, just as the ethnobotanical or historical use predicts. So for hypertension, yes, we change the diet, we clean out the fungus, and we use red sour grape as well as black seed oil. The third part of that protocol that we found very successful is a combination of herbs, notably wild strawberry leaf and also hawthorn leaf and hawthorn berry. It's called Hyper-E. So just keep that in mind. That would be an ideal capsule. It's a combination of about 6 different herbs that you could use to replace your antihypertensive drugs. Yeah. So if you took those 3, you're going to see it in elimination. But you might have to do what Mr. Campasuner's father-in-law, father did, which was he took a 1/4 cup of black seed oil a day. So don't be shy. It will reverse it, but the dose, it varies. It may be 2 tablespoons, maybe for you it's 1 ounce, maybe 2 ounces will reverse your condition. It is also anti-diabetic. Now, if we take that a step further, Saudi investigators found that the consumption of black seed oil caused people with a high heart rate, who had hyper hearts, or who had atrial fibrillation, very high heart rate. They didn't exercise them. They didn't change anything. They fed them black seed oil, and the heart rate went from 100 to 65 to 60 just with the black seed oil. So it feeds the heart and changes the chemistry in there if you have heart disease, and if you don't want to have a heart attack, black seed oil on a daily basis. Now, for heart disease in general, sometimes we have to do a couple of other things. You still want to clean out the fungus, you still want to clean out the bacteria. I can't even begin to tell you how many germs infect the heart and arteries. But a lot of times with heart disease in general, you have to take a look at a much bigger, broader picture than just high blood pressure. Think about it. The heart is a pump. It's just a mechanical device. When it wears out, we die. What's the problem that the heart has to face, ladies and gentlemen, as a mechanical pump? What's it trying to do? It's It's trying to perfuse the blood. And what's it up against? Come on, doctor. It's up against
Plaque.
what?
Plaque.
Yes. It's up against resistance. In the arterial tree. The arterial tree consists of 50,000 miles of arteries. Did I hear that correctly? Not 50,000 yards. Not 5,000 miles. 50,000 miles. If you took that's twice around the earth. Every artery stretched out. Unfathomable situation. So make it easy for the heart. Eliminate the plaque. That's where the oil of oregano, the juice of oregano are very important because you have to kill all the infection. Plaques mostly because the arterial wall is becoming infected, but also regenerate the arterial walls. 50,000 miles. The heart has to pump against it. You can't have them being stiff. And so that's where the grape comes in. We've got our wild grape cure. We talked about that. We're going to start harvesting those. We're going to try to look at this red sour grape, Res Vital, and take that on a regular basis, both as the powder and the capsules. We're going to look at that black seed oil to improve the chemistry within the heart muscle. But there's something else, and it's also one of those blessings. And don't forget what God says. He says He showers His kindness on basically everybody, whether you believe in Him or not, and that His kindness and grace is unlimited. And I find that in the herbal kingdom, because I'm not an expert in the divine. So, now, in the herbal kingdom, in the plant kingdom, in the fruit kingdom, and anybody who guesses this gets a big surprise. We're going to be giving you a little reward. There's a plant mentioned in the scriptures, both in the Bible and the Quran, that's especially nice plant, fruit plant. Not grapes, we already talked about that. That's like the fruit of the heavens.
Aloe.
Who?
Aloe.
Acai is not in there. Aloe may be in there, but it's not more of an herb than a fruit. Fruit of the heavens, grows on a tree. It's mentioned in the scriptures, right? Come on. It's a special fruit for the heart. Pomegranate.
I said that.
She said it.
I said it. Kept saying.
She gets to have the pomegranate syrup.
You heard me say that?
Yeah. Somebody else said it too. So wherever, see the boss later.
Who's the boss?
I don't know. So the pomegranate regenerates. It's a blessing. It regenerates the arterial tree. It has immunogalactans. Those substances are very important. What they do is they improve the enzyme elastase. The arterial wall is an elastic. The arteries are elastic. The veins are not so elastic. The veins are dependent upon pumping through valves. But the arterial wall self-pumps. When it becomes degenerated and corroded, then you lose the elasticity and it's fighting against stiff. So you unstiffen it with the pomegranate. And fortunately, you have available the pomegranate syrup, which is Mediterranean wild pomegranate, which is about 3 times more powerful than California pomegranate. But eat the pomegranates, use the syrup, drink the juice. And so that's heart disease. Do we have any questions on high blood pressure and heart disease before we move on to a little bit more into diabetes? Diabetes now, what do you do with that supplementally? We have found some cures for diabetes. They're pretty dramatic. And some of it translates back over to heart disease. Remember, anything with diabetes is going to help with heart disease. Anything with heart disease is going to help with diabetes. So what I found was myself is that there's a mushroom or a kind of a growth that grows on birch trees. So we know there's the fungal issue. We know we're treating that fungus. Sometimes you get some good results, but then you have type 1, which is such a difficulty. So is there anything really, something dramatic that would just cure diabetes? And we found it. It's called chaga. Wild chaga obliterates this condition. Now you got to do the other things, right? You got to do the diet. You got to change. You You've got to do the garden. You've got to start the exercise program. Start feeling better, then you do the walking. It's brisk walking. But the chaga is spontaneously causing, in many of my patients, elimination of the diabetic condition. We didn't give it initially for that. No one knew. They would come back to me with showing the 200, 220 blood sugar count coming down to 100, coming down to 90, coming down to normal by just consuming chaga tea, chaga power drops, chaga max capsules. That trio is especially effective. So wild chaga. Secondly, I myself found this out, that the sour grape from Persia, this resvitol or red sour grape, which is high in natural chromium, it is also reversing diabetes. And such a simplistic thing. A mushroom or a growth on a birch tree, a type of grape that's not sugared, that's high in chromium, is causing the blood sugar to come down nicely or regenerating the condition. And then finally, there can be no doubt about this, you must destroy all that fungus in the body to get a quick cure in diabetes. And you can understand what we're dealing with because the person's had high blood sugars now for many years with the condition, and all that sugar is floating in the bloodstream and in internal organs, and it's feeding the fungus, and they're going completely mad with fungus. The body's completely out of control, overloaded with yeast and mold. And the mold's growing in the bloodstream and the internal organs. So you got to kill that down. And we have a potential OBGYN lady, and she knows the problem women face in the pelvis with fungus. So blast it out of Dodge with the oil of oregano and the juice of oregano. For some reason, we found that the discovery was that the juice of oregano, that particular type, causes the blood sugar to be cut by 40 to 50%. So it's doing something to stabilize the pancreas. Diabetes. Anything else with diabetes?
Half a teaspoon of the yacon in some water will bring the blood sugar down 10 points in about 2 seconds.
So the
That
root, the
fast.
Peruvian root.
Yeah.
Peruvian root, yacon, is sweet, so therefore a nice segue for diabetics so they can have something pleasant in their food. By the way, some diabetics might be able to handle one cereal, which is oat bran, and then that might be nice with a little yacon for a little variety. Oat bran, not oatmeal. And if you did do the oat bran, you'd be better off by loading it with a lot of butter. That's right. Butter and yacon. I'll give you a little treat here and there. So that's good advice. Yacon has been shown. It has inulin in it, which is mimicking insulin. Okay, Mr. Campesuna, anything, Mr. Bungar, on diabetes? And
Cinnamon, fenugreek.
There's a special other supplement called a regulin that we use for diabetics, and it's cinnamon, fenugreek, myrtle, oregano, and cumin. And they take it as drops under the tongue, 20 drops 3 times a day, always cuts the blood sugar. And of course, you know cinnamon, and by the way, cinnamon powder, a teaspoon twice a day, is effective against diabetes and also improves memory and brain function by regulating blood sugar. It's kind of fun to know you can take supplements, but you can also find things out in the marketplace that work. So we've covered a lot of ground on the various diseases that you've represented and that we talked about in the lectures. But as you see from that sheet, if you want to grab one of those and start passing that out, we've covered a lot of other conditions that there are protocols for. You might have loved ones or friends that you want to help. And I put together along with Ms. Judy, the top 3 or 4 supplements that you need to use to reverse those conditions. I'd like to open it up. We've got another session to go with you on cancer and a couple other issues, our inflammatory conditions. I'd like to open it up for questions for you if you need some help or support. We're here to help out. We're here to serve, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so my dad has diabetes and heart problems, and he's had a quadruple heart surgery,
Yeah.
and he's had diabetes for many, many years. Never had to have insulin because we changed diet.
Yeah.
So his diabetes is now very low. It's like 90s. It's very low.
Oh, that's good.
However, his kidneys are having a problem now. Now he can't eat bananas, he can't eat tomatoes, he can't eat peppers. And we were wondering, what are those foods doing to his kidneys where he can't eat them anymore?
What happens to him when he eats a bananas or peppers?
Actually, the kidney doctor just said at this time he needs to stop eating those things.
Okay, but
But
what?
they didn't offer a reason why. They just said, no more bananas, no more, because all the food he eats is basically very natural.
I don't understand why they put bananas related to the kidney. But let's go into it. What kind of a symptom does he have that's kidney? Is he swelling up? Is he puffy under his eyes? Is he puffy? Is he? Did they measure his kidneys and say they're failing, or what's going on?
They've been the same for like 10 years, it's not elevated, but they said he was 85 years old. You have the same kidney problems, test results always come back the same.
It's because of the potassium you see in there that they're worried about, because bananas are rich. But you can improve the function of the kidneys with the oil of oregano, always. Because you know what, the kidneys are a filter, so they tend to get a lot of fungal and bacterial trapped in there. So you give the oil of oregano a few drops twice a day, 85 years old is fine. He should take something called Oregamax capsules, because they have a herb in there that's really good for the kidneys. If he did those two, there's a special wild cranberry called Cran Flush. And I wouldn't let the doctor discourage you or anything on that. That will really clean out his kidneys in a dramatic way. So maybe then he could start to have some of the foods he likes, because the function is better. Yeah. With this bypass surgery, he really should get on some things to strengthen his heart, which would be the black seed oil and the juice of oregano. Maybe the pomegranate, it's a little bit high in carbs, but not too bad for the arterial. Or the red grape, which is very low in carbs, but that should solve it. But we don't see any evidence his kidneys are failing, from what I'm hearing. Yes,
Let me
ma'am.
say one other thing. You know, I was talking about the glyphosate, and it does some really, really bad things to the kidneys. And that's what they spray all of our food with. So that's why it's such a huge problem. Everyone has issues with kidneys. If you are eating plants that have been, that conventionally grown, it's like, you're just crazy if you are thinking you have to eat that organic food. Well, I mean, what is organic food? That's just what I grew up with. My grandpa just went out, plowed the fields, used manure, whatever, and, grew food. And it was beautiful, and it tasted good, and it was good for us. Now, with all of these horrible chemicals that they put into our foods, either before it's grown, even the seeds are poisoned half the time. So, I mean, every way they possibly can, they're contaminating our food. So this is why kidneys are an excretory organ. Our skin is an excretory organ. Anything where the body has to get rid of poisons is going to be affected. So that's, we have to be really careful what we're putting into our bodies.
Yeah, I had just one, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were in business meetings all day, and at the end of the day, I said, "Doc, can you tell I don't feel that good?" And so he said, "What was wrong?" And I said, "I never get it, but I had acid reflux, and I couldn't burp. I just felt uncomfortable." So Doc said, "Okay." So he gave me some chocolate powder, and told me to sip on
Juice of oregano.
Juice of oregano. And so I started. It was towards the end of the day. By the time about an hour commute, by the time I got back to where I was, at night I walked in the door, I told my wife what happened. I said, I feel fine now. It was gone. And so, I sipped a little through the night. The next day, no issue at all. And so, but I picked up when you said you had acid reflux.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the juice of oregano, chaga. Yeah, absolutely. I think you had a question about something in the back. Okay. All right, so good. Now, we're going to take a little break, And we promised to stay a little longer, and then we're gonna get into cancer and other things that you might find challenging. I know some of you have inflammation, but let's see if there can be some help for you to get off your drugs. Yeah, that's our biggest objective, is to get you drug-free. Just replace it with the nutrients. Yeah. Got it.
I'll get that one too.
Oh, he did have, when he was raised his hand, we were chanting.
Yeah, he's really good.
The first thing we can do is put him on antibiotics. He needs some support on his thyroid. You got fungus. You gotta take some of those oregano, juice. Yeah, all the things. Rub that down the spine. Yeah, the allergy, the asthma medicine. But the problem with that, our heart is probably gonna go away, but